On Christmas Day, 1832, Joseph Smith received a revelation and prophecy on war, as it is called. As we shall see, this is a misnomer. The Lord clearly states that the revelation is about wars, in the plural, that shall commence in the United States. It is not strictly a civil war, but a global war, which will start in South Carolina and then spread to all nations. Furthermore, the war will extend beyond the sword. The Lord will come down in wrath and indignation, making a full end of all nations. This is a clear reference to the calamities of the apocalypse. The Church's preface to Section 87 puts forth the issue of slavery in the United States and troubles throughout the world as the context for the revelation. The preface cites Joseph Smith's history as background information. The citation is from the History of the Church, Volume 1, Chapter 22. Joseph describes the troubles among the nations and within the United States. He notes the rebellion of South Carolina in 1832 called the Nullification Crisis by historians. Joseph Smith was alarmed at what was occurring, so much so that on Christmas Day he prayed earnestly to the Lord on the subject, receiving the revelation on war by voice. There are three things of note here. First, Joseph was not asking the Lord about what was occurring in the United States and the world at large. Though these events were the impetus for his prayer, he was more specifically asking about the timing and cause of the events preceding the coming of the Son of Man. Second, he assumed that the cause for the difficulties would be the slave question. As we shall see, the revelation does not give the specific reason for the onset of war, other than the fact that South Carolina will rebel. Third, both Joseph Smith and the Lord expressly say that the commencement of the difficulties will begin with the rebellion of South Carolina. What is unclear is which rebellion of South Carolina the Lord refers to. In Joseph's mind, the Lord may be referring to South Carolina's rebellion during the Nullification Crisis of 1832. After all, that was ongoing when Joseph prayed and received the revelation. On the other hand, the Lord could be referring to the American Civil War of 1861 to 1865, which was set off by a Confederate attack on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. He knew this would come, while Joseph Smith would have been unaware. Not off the table is a future war, again starting with the rebellion of South Carolina. We'll explore all three possible explanations. The Nullification Crisis of 1832 to 1833 was a confrontation between South Carolina and the U.S. federal government over the federal tariffs of 1828 and 1832. South Carolina objected to these tariffs, eventually declaring them unconstitutional and null and void in the state. The rationale for South Carolina's action is found in the constitutional theory of nullification, whereby a state has the right to invalidate any federal law it deems unconstitutional. In the event of military conflict, Governor Hayne established a militia and infantry ready to march to Charleston. Weapons were also purchased. In the end, the crisis was resolved peacefully. At the federal level, Congress passed a force bill authorizing President Andrew Jackson to use military force against South Carolina, while at the same time negotiated a new tariff acceptable to the rebellious state. The South Carolina Convention reconvened and repealed its nullification ordinance. The crisis was over without bloodshed. However, the doctrine of nullification became central to the next crisis, the American Civil War. As President Jackson presciently opined, the tariffs were a pretext, with Southern Confederacy the object. The next pretext would be slavery.